Hello everyone, welcome back to Glop. I am your host Derek. I will have a link down below dealing with this article, but I'm going to actually talk to you about the article and some things that I've been having to deal with. As a Christian, I've done videos dealing with the Nephilim, and now this elongated skull, this new DNA testing, this 2,000-year-old elongated Paracas skull changes known history. The reason why it's changing known history is that the DNA from it has been something that's in question. It's just not the known species as us, humans, that this DNA is in the sequence. Now, there's been legends about the Nephilim. There's been legends about giants that used to roam the earth. And actually, a lot of people have issues with the book of Enoch and the book of Jasher and Jubilees. Now, I don't say that those books are a hidden knowledge. I don't say that those books are in the canon. But I do know that they all have been mentioned in the scriptures, whether it be the Old Testament or even the New Testament, which says that there is something to these manuscripts that we should be looking at. A lot of people think that whenever Jesus said, as in the days of Noah, means that man was just marrying and doing whatever they want to, and they didn't realize till the flood came. What people don't realize is that you can read the scriptures, and it talks about in the days of Noah, or when in the time that Noah lived, that Noah was the only man that was found pure. The scriptures go in and say, in all his generations, which means there was this bloodline that was being protected. Now, some people give into the thing saying that the sons, wives, that came onto the ark, that they believed that they had the Nephilim bloodline, and that's how it comes in as of that time and after that. I believe that there's more to the story than we know. I believe the scriptures tells us a lot of information, and I think that when we let the scriptures interpret the scriptures, we find out there is a place known for the giants. David killed Goliath, which was known as a giant. When you see where Yahweh tells his people to go into these areas such as Canaan and other ones, he tells them to wipe out everything, including man, woman, child, and the animals. A lot of people will say that God is that he's a genocide type of deity, that he loves destruction and wiping out all these civilizations. But it's only when he goes into certain lands that Yahweh tells the Israelites to really eradicate those bloodlines. And I think there's a reason why, is it goes back to Genesis chapter 3, where Lucifer convinces Eve that she and Adam can be as gods. And that Yahweh tells the serpent, that old ancient serpent that's mentioned in the book of Revelation, that this serpent, Lucifer, Satan, will have a person that will come and he will strike his heel, but the Messiah will bruise his head, which is a killing blow. And I think that the fallen angels, Jesus, it talks about in Peter, 2 Peter, where Jesus goes down and talks to the spirits that's in prison in Tartarus. And he sits there and tells them, he's been triumphant, he's won. And in doing so, we see that this thing is played out through the scriptures and the Holy Bible. You don't even have to look in the book of Enoch or the book of Jasher or Jubilees, or even look at the historian Josephus. You can just read the scriptures themselves and realize that these creatures, these beings, existed, and they were an abomination on the earth. Now, the elongated skull in Paracas, which has caused a lot of stir since 2014, when a geneticist carried out a DNA sequence and reported that with mutations unknown to any human primate or animal known so far, was found in the second round of DNA testing. And again, this has been brought to mind. You've had researchers of this caliber. Researchers such as L.A. Marzulli and Steve Quayle that have looked into these things and had the money to actually go to the locations. These skulls have also been used by the ancient aliens community, talking about that this is the descendants of the Anunnaki. Now, A lot of people say because that LA and them make movies and DVDs that they're profiteering, that they're looking to make money off of this subject. Now, I'm not going to lie. They do make money off of it. But it's just like any type of good job or investigation, the person will have to be paid for their services. But I will admit that even myself have had issues with L.A. Marzulli on some of the things of his findings, such as the Nephilim theory that he came out with a book and with Watchers 10 that was talking about how this could be, and even fooled me, and I'll admit that this Nephilim theory was a hoax. Now, he comes out later on and says that it was a hoax, but only after he has sold his books and his movies, which gives gives credit or gives people a platform to say that he's profiteering off of the books of the Bible or off of this phenomenon, and in doing so, he's no longer credible. I do think that you need to vet all your stories before you post them or put them up. Especially if you're going to ask people to pay for it. You need to make sure that you're a credible source. Now, LA in this picture here does point at a position of a forearm in the Paracas skull, which is also the point of which they drilled in order to extract the bone powder for the DNA testing. Now, there are over 1,000 skulls in Paracas, and there's evidence that says that these people came there by the sea. Some people will even say that these elongated skulls, and let's take it down before I go any further, were the giants of old that were looking or running or fleeing from Joshua when he was going into the promised land attacking. It is believed that these beings, when they came over through the sea, that they're the ones that actually built the different pyramids in Mexico and in South America, and that in doing so, it's always been said that the Mayas, claimed that they didn't build these structures; they were built by the gods before them, and then they kind of took them over as caretakers. They also talk about a being that was a white male with a white beard and hair that had the ability to control lightning. A lot of people have a ties to this, and even myself, in those legends. Could this possibly be Zeus? And could Zeus be talked about in this manner, and actually was one of the ones of the ancient gods that did flee from that area because of what was taking place? Because Joshua and all of them were wiping them out. And also back before the flood, when the ancient aliens say that the gods walked among man. So could this elongated skulls be the children, grandchildren of the gods that's no longer with us, the false gods, the ones that were the descendants from the Watchers, the Watcher Angel, the class that came down and had relations with the daughters of men? I think so. I think with this DNA results saying that there is something by unnatural means or unnatural ways of us figuring out how these beings came to be, that there's a sequence in the DNA that's completely different than anything on Earth known to date. Now think about that for a second. You have a creature, a being that has an elongated skull that is known by cannot be explained away. Science such as this right here, that this shows what a normal skull is to look like with all its sutures, what we're familiar with. The elongated skull is not that case. It has just the one right over here, and it's not known to happen by crater boarding. It's also known that the elongated skulls actually has the capacity to hold more brain matter and mass than an average human skull. So there is something about these things that are uncharacteristic than any known species we know today. Now, in my theories, I do theorize that I believe that these beings do exist. And I think that that is what we're seeing possibly with the Sasquatch. The Sasquatch is known to have elongated looking skull. It's known to be big and massive, almost 9 or 10 feet in height itself. And it's supposed to be covered with red hair all over in some cases. And the Nephilim are known to have those same characteristics, also by the odor and the smell that these things are supposed to give off. Let's take a look at a artist rendering of what a skull looked like, or what it looked like in the time that it was in Paracas. As you can see in this artist rendering, that it was known to possibly have red hair, and this is supposedly like how it would wrap its hair around its head. Now this is going along the lines of saying that this creature only had hair on top of its head, that it didn't cover it even more. But it talks about the cheekbones, and the structure of this thing is very thick and massive and very, very hardy and powerful. I'm thinking that, you know, if you were to add more hair, not just on top of the head like we have, but like I have with my beard here, and you add more hair going down, could this not be something that looks as if the Sasquatch, the Yeti that we see today? Many First Nation people have legends of the Sasquatch. They also have legends of a giant race that were known as cannibals. And if you look at the cultures that follows the feathery serpent, the fiery serpent, those cultures sacrifice humans almost on a daily basis for blood sacrifice. Could it be that these beings, these things that are talked about in these other extra biblical texts, such as Enoch and Jasher, that talks about them eating human flesh? Could this be where cannibalism came from? Could these beings be so different from us that they would look at us as we do primates, that some cultures actually eat primates? Could that be the case with this race of beings, that they don't view us as equals but a food source? If they're as massive and as big as they claim to be, and as it's been shown through history that giants existed, it's very easy for them to look at us and say we could be another food source. It's just some food for thought. I'll have a link down below dealing with elongated skulls. Please read it. It's chock full of great information. And as always, please pay attention to your surroundings. You never know what lies around the corner. God bless.